Hello, and today we'll continue with Chapter 1 of Nerus. Lottie and Lisa were welcomed to the kitchen by a commotion around the closet door. Santiago was talking to someone on the other side while Amelia and a few monks watched. Lottie couldn't help but sigh when he noticed that bearded vulture blessed man from earlier was there too. An even bigger sigh escaped him when Bernardo was the first one to notice them the first one to notice and approach him. You happen to be tired, detective? No. What's happening here? I'm not certain, as Amelia and I just arrived. It looks like Tom locked himself up in the closet. Santiago had been trying to talk to him, but he's not answering. Was he already here when you arrived? Of course. Elisa pulled on Body's sleeve. Excuse us. Body, come here. They took a few steps back and sort of burned their backs. Lisa saw him a glance before getting on her toes and whispered something to the crocodile. I think it's as I feared. Santiago tried to get here before us to warn Tom, but it backfired. It's possible. We should try to get him out of the closet as soon as possible. Who knows what Santiago is telling him right now? Did you notice that he lowered his voice when we came in? Or he suggested I should kick the door down? If it's necessary, I don't think it will be. Body fixed his coat before advancing toward the crowd. Bernardo moved aside for him and followed close behind him with his hands behind his back. The crocodile didn't need to say a word for the monks to disperse once they realized he was drawing closer. He stood next to Amelia, who was looking up at him with a hand on her chest, but it was Santiago to whom he directed his attention. What are you waiting for? Open the door with your master key. You know what's going on in there. He might have himself hurt. Yes, I suppose that's all we can do. Amelia, if you would be so kind. The old woman looked at him perplexed for an instant before handing her key to Santiago. However, Body snatched it off her hands before the possum had a chance to grab it. Move and get ready in case he tries anything funny. You too, Bernardo. Of course. Bernardo gave him a thumbs up. Santiago clenched his teeth but lowered his head as Dan had said. Body waited for him to be in position before unlocking the door and opening it. Body, however, remained sitting in the back of the closet, his pink face and a bottle in hand. The crocodile raised a scaly eyebrow before stepping inside. The human man didn't seem to pay him any mind before a glance as he crouched down in front of him. Santiago and Bernardo peeked from behind the crocodile to the rack of a cook. What is this? Do you think you can avoid us by pulling a stunt like this? Tom did was by Body growled and got out. This is safer. Let's take you to your cell. You are not going to make us drag you there, will you? No. The cook got on his shaky feet, his gaze still lost nowhere in particular. He took a step and it looked like he was about to slip, but Body caught him by the shirt, much like a cat mother carries a kitten. Santiago approached Tom to offer him his soda. Here, let's get you to your cell, Tom. What a mess. We aren't getting anything useful out of him like this. But this could also be a new opportunity. At least it didn't waste any time before cooking up a new scheme. Body took notice of the change in her demeanor before she even spoke. Excuse me, I have a suggestion. Yeah, Mr. Tom hasn't been feeling well lately, yes? I worked for Earth Church for a few years before becoming a detective, so I know of some potions we could use to improve his mental state. It should prevent incidents like this from happening again and escalating. Is that so? Santiago raised an eyebrow. Can I use the herbs at the infirmary to prepare the medicine? I don't need much. Of course, if it will help him, I'll accompany Santiago and Tom while you are at it. They split into two groups, with Bernardo escorting Amelia back to her study while the rest walked down toward the dormitory. Body's group was halfway there when they noticed a familiar feline approaching for their destination. Layla jumped with each step, and her hands were closed into fists. Elisa wondered if she was planning to punch the crocodile. "There you are, Detective. I have bad news." She returned to Santiago and Tom, her enthusiasm dying down. "Did something happen?" "We are a bit busy, but do tell." "Did you talk with your co-workers?" "Yes. It turns out Josue was stealthy last night. I think we know who the killer is." "What?" Tom's head bobbed up and down as Santiago jumped in his surprise. A low rumble out of Body's throat. "Elisa, make that post as quickly as you can. Come with us and tell us what your friend saw, Layla." "Understood." Alright. So we went out in the middle of ourselves to use the bathroom when Body pushed the scriptorium's door open, being woken once again by the sound of sewing machines and page turning, as well as a few gazes. He immediately locked on the black and blue figure near the middle of the room. They felt eyes on them as they advanced towards it, especially Bernardo, whose hand was on his horse and ready to draw the cold armored weapon any moment now. "How can I help you today, Detective?" They didn't need to see Aloysius' face to notice his attention turning towards Bernardo, whose hand was reaching beneath his coat. "Yes, actually, we need you to come with us." "Well, I'm working now. Is this urgent?" "You're under suspicion for the murder of Giorgio, Aloys. I recommend you to come with us peacefully." Body's shoulders were tense, and from the moment he was closing and opening his hands, he was preparing himself to get attacked at any moment. He was bigger than Aloys. Yes, but the boy was still a werewolf. He would be overpowered in an instant if he caught. He would be overpowered in an instant if caught with his guard down. "I see." Aloy slowly raised his hands and stood up. Bernardo threw Body a big pair of handcuffs which he put on a werewolf. At least had some doubts that thin-looking material would withstand his strength, but she tried not to think too much of what would happen if they didn't. "You aren't under arrest, but I understand. With a werewolf, you can't take enough precautions." "Indeed. Come, we'll talk." Body and Lisa took their spots on the couch, but this time Alois was across from them. Bernardo stood to the side of the couch, watching. "Bernardo, don't you want to take a seat?" "No, thank you. I prefer standing up, if you say so." Body took out his notebook and returned his attention to the handcuffed werewolf. "So, Alois, I imagine you have a good idea of why you're here. Someone told us they saw you exit the dormitory last night." He turned a couple of pages in his notebook. "They said a giant wolf suddenly fell from the sky and startled them so bad they fainted." "It was a hunter, right?" I was hoping he'd think he was dreaming. Apparently that is what he thought. But someone heard him scream, so we know it was real. "I see. Indeed, I jumped off my window last night." "Why?" "I needed to go see my teacher. He had something for me." "And what was that?" Alois shifted slightly on the chair, his cuffs clicking. Elisa imagined him closing his eyes behind the mask and meditating his next move. "Was it something private in nature?" The werewolf's ears perked up. "You could say that. I truly would prefer to not speak about this. As unfortunate as it is, I'm afraid you don't have that luxury in this situation." One moment, I'd like to bring your attention to something." Hands behind his back, the bearded vulture took a couple of steps forward. "As you may know, I spoke with Amelia today. I believe what I learned is relevant to Aloys' situation. I'll lay it down simple. Amelia is who opens and closes the doors to the church every day. This includes the door leading to the cloister. She was entrusted by Will to keep the keys to the entire place. If a monk needs a key, they need to request it to her. And she has an apprentice who covers for her when she's busy elsewhere. Last morning, Amelia checked the key box in her study and confirmed everything was in order. It was only later, when she was closing before Giorgio was murdered, that she noticed 2 copies of church's keys were missing. I saw her the key we found on Giorgio's corpse, and she confirmed that one of them, the culprit, the culprit must still have the other key. Assuming they stole the keys at the same time, it sounds like the culprit knew he would be at the church then, doesn't it? So I spoke with the apprentice after. She was in Amelia's study from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. and claimed did not have lent those keys out to anyone. However, she admitted there were several intervals during which she was absent. She was meeting with her boyfriend and friends. Body shook his head. But of course, where were you during that time, Lois? At the scriptorium working. I imagine it won't be hard to ask around about that. Bernardo, did you ask Amelia about the night William died? Amelia didn't remember seeing anything abnormal that day. Curious. The crocodile lay back, leaning his arm against the couch's back and closed his eyes. A picture is forming, a dormitory where no one can leave except through the lower floor's doors. The lower floor's windows, 2 people, 2 keys, 1 time. A bear waiting for the Simon to jump up the falls. Bernardo tilted his head as he looked at the crocodile. Buddy let out a small giggle and rubbed his notebook between his hands before opening his eyes. Elisa gave the bird a sympathetic look. Alois, I still need to know why you needed to meet your teacher last night. If it is absolutely necessary. The rebel stood up and pointed at the door. It's in my cell. I will show it to you. When they entered the dormitory, a shiver immediately went up Elisa's spine, as if she had been hit by a breeze after getting sold. She embraced herself, a weary look in her eyes. Hey, is it me, or is it cold here? I think it's you. Maybe you're getting sick. Ugh. Elisa sought the hallway one last glance before proceeding upstairs to Aloysius' cell. It's inside that drawer. This one. When Body crouched to search the drawer, Elisa noticed the crocodile's movements started to slow down. A strong feeling of nausea quickly settled as the world around the hybrid grew slower, blurrier. It was like watching an out-of-focus video being slowed down until you could see every single frame. Let's help him. Huh? Bernardo and Aloysius' eyes fell on Elisa. They moved the same way as the crocodile. A loud sparkling sound came from somewhere below them. As the room grew darker and muddier, the woman leaned against the wall, fearing she would slip off the floor any moment now. And then there was a flash and explosion. Elisa shut her eyes and a shriek ran out her throat. Body hit his snout against the chair and knocked it over, trying to turn around. Ouch. Elisa, what's wrong? It was only then that Elisa noticed everything was back to normal, and yet she couldn't stop trembling. This fear was unmistakable. It was the same she had felt of after Giorgio died. She could almost feel the invisible darkness dripping from the walls, closing in on them. Body, something is wrong. You can sit on my bed if you wish, Elisa. You won't look well. You don't look. Train hammer. Ouch. Elisa, what's wrong? It was only then that Elisa noticed everything was back to normal. And yet she couldn't stop trembling. This fear was unmistakable. It was the same she had felt after Giorgio died. She could almost feel the invisible darkness dripping from the walls, closing in on them. Buddy, something is wrong. You can sit on my bed if you wish, Elisa. You don't look well. Whatever it was she felt, once again, she was the only one who received it. Letting out a defiant sigh, Elisa took the werewolf for his offer and sat where he gestured. Body gave her a look she didn't understand, which worried her more than what just happened. But not wanting to get distracted, he quickly went back to the task at hand. Let's see here. Is this box what we are looking for? Yes. Raising an eyebrow, Body opened the small wooden box. Inside there were envelopes, both white and yellow. Body grabbed the topmost one and opened it. If I may make a request, would you please not read it out loud if I consider it appropriate? The crocodile read the letter inside, rubbling the contents for himself. After he seemed to finish, he clicked his tongue and blinked before lowering his hand and squinting at Alois. Is this for real? The werewolf raised his hands to his neck. He struggled due to the cuffs, but he managed to bring a collar up from under his habit. A necklace composed of silver chains and a sizable pendant. The pendant had a silver part that was shaped in a way that reminded the hybrid vaguely of a wolf's mouth. In between those gray mouths was a pitch-black brimstone. The gem was the most captivating part by far. There was no light being reflected from the surface. It was a small black hole that absorbed everything. Staring at it, one would feel like they were being pulled into it as well. Elisa and Bernardo looked at each other in confusion. While Body nodded slowly, his mouth ever so slightly agape. After a long time, he addressed a bearded vulture. "You can uncuff him, Bernardo." The bird closed his eyes for an instant before stepping forward and taking the key from the handcuffs. He glanced at the pendant the entire time as he removed them. The werewolf let his shoulders drop with some relief and tucked the necklace back inside his habit. "I'm glad this is sorted out, but I'm sorry my antics distracted you from your investigation. You still aren't completely in the clear, for now." Before Body could finish, a shout and a pair of loud footsteps resonated from somewhere below. The four sprinted downstairs without hesitation. Layla winced as he hit Body's stomach face first, bouncing down to the floor. Body helped her get back up. "Sorry, Layla, what happened?" "It's another corpse in one of the cells." Body deflated and rolled the side of his head. "So soon? Damn it." "Layla, please take us to the cell. I won't get in your way any longer. Good luck, detectives." Layla guided the investigators to a door near the end of the hallway, Alicia walking a few steps behind everyone else. She already perceived the iron-like smell in the air. Well, a few people were still in the dormitory started coming out of their cells, including Layla's fellow hunters. "Layla, what's going on?" "Didn't you hear me? Someone's dead." "Could you two keep everyone away?" "Of course, leave it to us." The huntress pushed the door open, revealing a curled-up body in the center of the cell. The blood stain expanded from its nape, and a pool of blood had already formed behind it. Body and Bernardo got closer to the body with an almost mechanical disposition to examine it, while Layla and Alicia stood by the door. The feline was rubbing the tip of her thumb on her front teeth, while the hybrid stared at the scene with an occasional blink. His skull got cracked open. "Damn. Layla, do you see anyone enter this room at all?" "No, but my shift started only a while ago. It is very fresh. Whoever did this escaped only minutes ago. Through there, I would bet." Body nodded toward the cell's window. It was wide open. Bernardo got up to look outside, but there weren't even tracks they could follow. "I believe we should ask the Abbots to move upstairs for their safety. There's no doubt now the killers targeted them." "You see this guy at Earth's Church? Oscar was his name, I think." "Do you know him well, Alicia?" She shook her head. "No." "Well, we have work to do. Layla, go look for Santiago. Tell him to look for the Abbots and to move them upstairs as soon as possible. After that, please stop by the infirmary and tell one of my colleagues to come here." "All right." "And Body, I believe you and your assistant should rest." The crocodile found that Bernardo got up. "Excuse me?" They even glanced at the door before stepping closer to whisper at the detective's ears. "I couldn't help but notice that your assistant seems off. You have been investigating for many consecutive days, haven't you? I believe you earned a rest." Bernardo took a step back, but Body grabbed him by the shoulder and pulled him close again. His eyes, however, were on Alicia. "Bernardo, usually, if a police officer who have joined the investigation just late told me this, I would tell him to stuff it." but I have to admit that it doesn't seem like a terrible idea right now. I'm glad we agree. Bernardo tapped the crocodile sword and gave it a tight squeeze. Buddy squinted at him before breaking free and exiting the cell. Elisa, are you still there? Yeah. Bernardo thinks we should take a break from so much investigating. What do you say we go have an early dinner? Elisa looked down to the side. She nodded. The duo entered their cell with full stomachs. Elisa's eyes seemed to have regained some of their focus, but she still looked somewhat distant. Buddy sat on his bed and groaned as he lay down. Elisa, what is happening to you? I don't know. Am I acting that strange? You don't seem really there. Do you get what I mean? I guess. Since last night, you had this weird look on your face and been screaming out of the blue. Well, do you want me to be honest? She sat down on the opposite bed, staring at her pale hands on her lap. When we found Giorgio's corpse, how to say it, something came out of him, a white flame. It rose to the ceiling before exploding. Buddy's brow tightened as Elisa explained. He lifted aside and brought one hand to his chin. Did something else of that nature happen? When we were at Aloysius' cell, I got dizzy and I heard that explosion again. I know how it sounds. At first I thought I was imagining things, but maybe it had something to do with the abbot's death. Maybe. Elisa looked up, surprised at how serious Buddy was taking this. The crocodile was now lost in his thoughts, not even looking at her. Does this mean anything to you? Buddy's mouth hung open for an instant, then he turned to Elisa and spoke in a deeper tone than usual. I told her I made her nostalgic. I need to think about this. You should rest, Elisa. But from now on, if something like this happens again, I want you to tell me. Understood? I don't get it, but fine. Elisa opened her bed and got inside. Although the light was still on, it didn't take long for drowsiness to set in. She had noticed how exhausted she was. Buddy's belly rose and fell rhythmically. Hands rested on his chest as he stared at the wooden ceiling. Soon one of his feet joined his belly in his dance. Wiggling one side to the other, he wasn't going to get any sleep soon. He got up from the bed. Elisa was snoring and seemed to be having much better sleep than last night. Perhaps it wouldn't hurt if he went out for a stroll through the abbey. The detective grabbed his tail so it wouldn't drag on the floor and exited the cell. He let it flop back down once on the hallway and made his way downstairs. The hunters and the guards Santiago had called were still on duty near the end of the hallway. He waved back at Layla before exiting the dormitory. He was walking in the direction of the garden in front of the church when he heard a raspy, booming laugh in the distance. It was Remigio's voice. Haven't heard him laugh so hard since I arrived here. Buddy crossed the garden toward the guards' barracks. There was a small group of people congregated in front of the entrance to the walls. The crocodile recognized Remigio and Santiago, but there was another man who he hadn't met before but seemed familiar. For the seventh sake, Santiago, why will you admit it? Isn't that ridiculous? I was a kid back then. I'm not going to do that now. Santiago was once again being made the object of ridicule by Remigio. The third man watched him with a smile. All of them turned to Buddy when they heard him get close. Hello, gentlemen. I couldn't help but overhear Remigio roaring from the garden. What are you up to? Santiago was telling us about the time he ate his father's bait worms. Remigio. The possum threw a punch at the vampire, but his fist bounced off his back as if it had hit a brick wall. He shook his hand, a frustrated frown on his face. Nothing to get upset about, Santiago. We all did a little nonsense as kids. I don't believe we met before. Mike extended his hand to the stranger. He was a middle-aged human, pale in complexion with mostly black hair. Some of it had become white. The way his eyelids rested under his brows gave him a sleepy appearance, but Body recognized an underlying sharpness in the way his eyes analyzed him. He wore brown pants and a green jacket with fires wounds sewn on his left arm. You are the detective looking into my associate's death, I presume. I'm Diego, abbot of the Church of Fire. This had to be the youngest abbot I've met so far. That's right, although technically I'm on break right now. That policeman told me and my assistant to get some rest. Yet you came here to creep on the abbot. Did I? Shouldn't the abbot be in his dormitory? There's a killer in here targeting you, if you haven't heard. We know. We found him hanging out with some guards at the barracks. We figured it would be safe to let him stick around. Besides, it's all right, Santiago. What is your name? Body Spiner, private detective. Alvaro did mention that you changed your name after you left the family. Come to think of it. Wait, what? Santiago raised an eyebrow, looking back and forth between the abbot and the detective. This big bully is Alvaro's relative? Big bully. You weren't aware? They were both crocodiles, Santiago. Enough of this. Back to our conversation. Will you come fist with us or not, Diego? You already heard the detective. I'm afraid I'll pass this year. I think you'll be safe with me and Remigio. No offense, but can you trust those hunters? Have they not failed enough? They aren't the ones at fault. Besides, don't you have guards stationed inside the dormitory now? They should keep me extra safe. You wouldn't want me to repeat George's mistake, though. Fair enough, I suppose. It's still a bit of a letdown. If Alicia were here, she would tap Body's shoulder to point out how calm Diego was, despite his claims that being outside of the dormitory was dangerous. Maybe she would question this herself. But since she was sleeping comfortably at her cell, Body would need to do all the questioning by himself. Have our party helped liven things up? Do you know why Giorgio went to the church that night? It's been bothering me for a while now. I would love to tell you, Mr. Detective, but I don't know. Even if I did, it would be rude of me to worry you with all of this, considering you are in the middle of your break. I'm sorry, but I couldn't help but wonder. All the victims so far have been abbots. It would be strange if you weren't linked to this case. So perhaps you know something we don't. Santiago was looking tenser by the moment, but didn't dare open his mouth and look down. Remigio was staring straight at the detective. Is the connection between us and the case obvious? What do you mean? Times are changing. Some people have become not so fond of us and the institutions we run. It wouldn't surprise me if the culprit behind this is a political enemy that managed to infiltrate the Abbey. No, perhaps they weren't an enemy at first, but with time they became radicalized and came up with this absurd plan to get rid of us. But I'm afraid the speculation can't answer your question about Giorgio. I truly don't know what he was trying to accomplish. He's much better at saying nothing with many words than Uncle, I'll give him that. If I had evidence they were guarding a secret, perhaps I could get something out of the abbots, but that won't happen as things currently are. If that's all, I'll be returning to my cell. Thank you for entertaining my questions. Have a good evening, Abbot. Santiago called 2 guards to escort Diego to the dormitory. He then crossed his arms and gave Body the side eye. You have guts talking to the abbot of the Church of Fire like that. I'm a detective for a reason. Now, did I hear you guys mention something about going fishing? Hell yes. Want to come? Remigio. A toothy smile appeared on the vampire's face as the possum threw another punch at him with as much success as the first one. Body twisted his hands in his pocket and smiled before saying, "I would love to join you. It sounds like an excellent way to relax." "Absolutely not. You can't come." "Think about it, Santiago. It's going to be boring with just the two of us. And even if you tell him that, he's still going to come." "That's right. I won't bombard you with questions, I promise." I couldn't miss a chance to interview the abbot. They've been silent and hard to come across ever since William's murder. "Do whatever you want. I don't care. Come over, Remigio. Let's go get our equipment." Outside the walls, Body followed Remigio and Santiago downhill. They took a detour to the side and into a forest. Through it, they arrived at a river running not too far from the road. Body took a look inside. The water was almost transparent and the bottom perfectly visible. "Do you usually get cats here?" "Not very often, but it doesn't matter. We came here to talk." Joe usually comes along on the rare occasion that he is visiting, but with this ongoing murder case, bah, forget about those for now. Remigio put down the backpack he had been carrying. Diego usually comes along on the rare occasion that he is visiting, but with this ongoing murder case, bah, forget about those for now. Remigio put down the backpack he had been carrying. They had brought 3 fishing rods, some bait, bottles of water, and 2 portable chairs. "Sorry, Fatty. I figured if you tried to sit on one of these, you'd crush it. That's fine." "Do you even know how to fish?" "I used to fish with a friend of mine when I was younger. I was never good at tying the hook, though. Big claw hands and all that." The vampire grunted as he prepared Body's fishing rod and then handed it to him. After raking a worm to the hook, he threw it in the water. The other 2 followed suit shortly after. The sunset's light broke through the leaves, painting the river amidst a faint blue and orange which grew stronger as the green around them was covered in shadows. What a shame the sunset was such a small part of the day. "So what are you to Alvaro?" Santiago was the first one to break the silence. Body glanced at him briefly before returning his focus on the water. "I'm his nephew. We used to visit him at least once a year when I was a kid." "Interesting. If I'm not mistaken, your family, are they wealthy people?" "Absolutely. Each one of my family members is the owner of their own company. They dominate every market they touch with innovation, or that's what they say." "A family of inventors, huh? How do you end up a detective then?" "They had great plans for me, but I wasn't interested in them. When I finished high school, I took my things and ran off. I haven't been in my old house ever since." "That can't be right. Surely there was something else to it." "I was a rebellious child. About 7. Sounds like you were one of those pain-in-the-ass teenagers. No use denying it." Body gave his fishing rod a tentative pull. He thought he had felt something bite the hook. "I'm not living a life as luxurious as I could have, but I don't regret it one bit. I never cared much about wealth. I stage it for the thrill this job gives me any day." "I knew you were peculiar, but you don't sound like any detective or law enforcement agent I know of." "Why do you start working on security, Santiago?" "Me, it's a long story. It started as a way to repay William for a favor. Oh, it's nothing related to what's happening now. He helped me a few years back, so I started working for him once I got into this business." The salary possum's eyes closed as if he had gotten a strong headache. "Back to our conversation. Surely you had at least someone you used to be close to when you were younger, Remigio." I suppose I was a bit close to old Abby at this. That was Abby, the one before William. He's the one that got me into this entire vampire business. Really? I would never guess. You always spit venom about the guy when brought up. Said it, said the uncle. So the Abby before William was a vampire. I hope this isn't an insensitive question, but how did he die? Old age. You must have already noticed that vampirism can hold aging only for so long. Mr. Detective, what's up with that girl? The one that arrived here the other day. Elisa? Yeah. You don't see many like her in your line of work. She's a friend's daughter. It's a long story, but the gist of it is that her entire family is either dead or missing. She's been with me for longer than with her blood relatives by now. Why is she coming along to your little murder mystery adventures? Well, I barely got a say on that. Why did you let out Amigos Huff shake his head? At first, I tried to get her to get a job at Earth Church. That's where she stayed every time I was out of town. One day, she got the idea she wanted to be a detective like me. She instead so much I decided to take her with me on a case. I thought she would get scared and realized she didn't, so I realized she didn't know what she was signing up for. But that day never came. She's more cold-blooded than me at times. Buddy chuckled. She must have gone through a lot. Do you know what happened to her family? No idea. I was a very busy man at the time and hadn't had contact with her family for years. Suddenly her dad called to tell me he needed to go. That he would leave Elisa with her mother and that he wanted me to keep an eye on them. I assume things didn't end well for the mother. Yeah. The river kept flowing. The surface still. It's getting dark. Want me to set up the oil lamp? It's getting dark. You want me to set up the lamp until we head back? Let's stay a while longer. Remizio wheeled his line back in and put his rod down before taking one of the oil lamps out of his backpack. It took some fiddling, but he managed to let it up eventually. Much better. I hope you don't mind me asking, but it sounded like you and Aloys went through similar circumstances. Remigio let out a confused groan, but then nodded once he realized what Bally was getting at. That's right, he never talks about it, but Alvaro told me they found him in some orphanage in some middle of nowhere town. Alvaro thought he was good stuff, so he took him back to the temple. The kid was sociable as a wall, never made a friend until Frank came along out here. Can't blame him. No, poor kid sits messed up. It's a very unloving world. Well, this has turned dark in a different sense. Remigio groaned and slapped the possum on the forehead, who then ran Soda first into the vampire. They dropped their wads in the middle of their bickering, the resulting ripples no doubt scaring away all potential cats. Something still bit on Body's hook, but he ignored it and let it go. The crocodile looked up at the two moons high in the sky. The moonlight stained everything with blue. Everywhere one looked, its ghost followed, a reminder of the world's scars. Elisa treads over the walk with slow steps. She goes around and around her, eyes piercing the space in front of her. Body watches her from below, occasionally turning to the trees behind him. It started to get dark. Well, congratulations, Elisa. Let me say again, you performed beyond any expectation. This means I get to work with you now, right? That's right. Marty looks back. A leaf is dragged out of the forest to his feet by the wind. More leaves follow in a formation reminiscent of lines of Martian ants. They pour under the rock Elisa before being blown upward. But I'm curious now. Is there a concrete reason you want to become my assistant? I suppose there is. I want real investigative experience and maybe some help. There's someone I want to track down. Do you mean your father? Correct. There are things I want to ask him. About what happened to my brother and the horrible way my mom died. I still remember. My grandpa went through the same. One day he became pale. His hair turned white. His eyes turned red. He had been like this for as long as I could remember, but I heard he used to look different. And after he died, the same happened to my mother. Yes, Angela went through a transformation after your grandfather died. Having been taken over by that beast described as a chimera. A phantom that both changed and was changed by her flesh. Elisa still feels its presence from time to time when looking down at her saddle. But the chimera didn't seem to wake up until she stepped into that abbey. Like I did after C died. Elisa stops walking and looks down at the crocodile's silhouette. She is unable to make out his face. Leaves spin around her now, small seals separating her from her surroundings. I don't want to end the same way. Whatever happens, I have to find him and learn what he knows. But what makes you think he knows anything? Say, Nerus, do you want to have children? My ears perk up. Truth be told, I have never given it much thought. It was never expected of me to create offspring. Such as your response. Sat sweets for one of the pieces sitting on the board and moved it one space up. A smile flashed across his face as a most devilish thought crossed his mind. Do you think a kid of yours would be as strong as you are? Why do you ask? I bet having an army of Neruses would be great news for the shapeshifters. Set started visiting with his tabard. Well, it would be quite disturbing to have children just for that. What am I? A stud? Nomino says one's soul is stronger the closer it is to the primordial light. Offspring can inherit or mutate new acids just like with genes. Because of that, their soul will be farther from the light than mine, so if I had children they would most likely be weaker than myself. I moved one of my pieces. Nomino sure says a lot of strange things. Now, it's part of our teachings. Elisa walks the walk around and around, her every step followed by a trail of dried yellow leaves. Body had lost his eyes, mouth, nose, and colors. Have you heard, Sophia? They are going to settle on a name for the bifurcated snake. Elisa comes to a sudden stop. She faces Spidey, leaves flying all around her. Was tearing it into two not enough? We have already observed it, so what do we gain from this? It might be torn apart now, but both parts are still connected. Yet they are distinguishable. Elisa brings one hand to her chin. If they keep imposing essence upon the snake, it will lose its light. They are too blind to realize this, of course. What do you suggest, Sophia? I have an idea, but We were supposed to be close to the snake, yet our senses are flawed and they keep degrading further as we expand. So much that it hurts our progenitor. But I know why this is. Every time we bask in its light, we cover ourselves with a mantle, denying our true nature. Is that not why we pair up the way we do when we create? Why we look for our other half, represented the side of the snake that we lack. But we are doing nothing other than delaying the inevitable. The true tragedy in all this is that we'll bring a truly superior being down with us once we fall. Then, what should we do? I'll open their eyes. I will show them the logical conclusion to this. And then our nature will become clear. Buddy woke Elisa up around 6 a.m. and asked her if she wanted to go grab breakfast. The pale woman was feeling much better and her stomach was rumbled with hunger. She hadn't eaten that much last night. Once in the refectory, instead of looking for the spot they usually share with the monks, they went to a different, isolated, small table where the police detective with unadorned feathers awaited. "Good morning, Bernardo." "Good morning, you two. Please take a seat." "What is this? You two are all chummy now." "Is there any reason we wouldn't be?" "Well," the crocodile returned Elisa's glance with a completely neutral expression as they sat down. Buddy grabbed a rather large piece of steak, which he proceeded to eat with his bare hands. Elisa did like Bernardo and took some sandwiches on her plate. I'll begin with progress concerning Giorgio's investigation. As you can imagine, my men are very busy. They haven't finished investigating Giorgio's corpse, and they still have to get started with Oscars. It will take some time before we know anything new. I expected as much. Fortunately, they did inspect the lamp. Unfortunately, no new fingerprints were found besides Giorgio's bodies. And the culprit did grab it. They were most likely wearing gloves at the time. I suppose that would have made things too easy. Still, this could be useful later. The birdman took a rather large bite out of his sandwich and gulped it down before proceeding. Elisa couldn't help but take notice that he and Buddy shared their voracious table manners despite their appearances. Next, progress on Oscar's investigation. I discovered something peculiar in his cell after you two left. Bernardo rubbed his hands before producing a folded piece of paper from his coat. He unfolded it and grabbed it from both ends before pulling it with a grunt. It didn't tear. Little glowing lines materialized on the paper's surface. Blue chains. That's a seal preservation? What sort of magic is this? None of the churches teach their monks to make and use seals like this one. This is descendant magic. I noticed something was up when I tried lifting this and a few drops of blood slipped right off. Yes, this magic protects a sealed object from any harm or modification and even from aging. But more importantly, what was it doing in Oscar's cell? Does it make sense that if anyone has access to this magic, it would be the abbots? I'm not so sure. So we can agree this seems like a promising avenue of investigation, yes? Any ideas? Finding the custody should be our next step. Perhaps he knows about this. Even if he didn't, that could be a hint by itself, I think. Lisa put her food down and extended her hand to Bernardo. Can I have a look? The paper seemed to be a certificate of a transaction William had taken part in. It was labeled with a 17 in the footer. A place of confidentiality occupied most of the page. Maggie manages the church's finances. I'm guessing she won't know about this, but it doesn't hurt to ask. Will you mind talking to her later, Bernardo? I assume you will look for a custody. Yes, come to think of it, we only ever saw him when we first arrived here. Some descendants won't sell themselves unless they are needed or if they feel like it, but I know a trick to draw them out. Is it something you learned at Earth's Church? They even finished his last sentence and got up, hands behind his back. I look for Maggie then. You can keep the document. It might be more fruitful to store it to the custody. Thank you. Okay, so every time Elisa sees this image, it explodes. And nobody else can see it but her. And whenever it explodes, there's a new death. Somebody dies. So, not sure where it could be, but that's what's been happening. Like, at least it would see something that only she could see, and then there's an explosion in a white flash, and then afterwards, somebody dies. Every time that happens, I don't know, there's some kind of capabilities he has, or if whatever this is, it seems to target Elisa more. But I'm not sure. Also, we got to see Sax again. Even if it's just in a flashback, we got to see Sax and Nerus again. Well, we didn't actually see Nerus, but we saw Sax and he was talking to Nerus. So we were through Nerus' point of view. And right before we see Sax again, at least there was another flashback of Elisa and Bitey when she was trying out her reverse investigation, and they talked about Elisa's family and that her family has some kind of mutation where their eyes turn red today and they're white and their hair turns white or blonde, and some of them have died from it. But Sax asked Nerus, Sax, Nerus is a big, strong guy. He's a big, strong man. So Sax asked Nerus. Well, he said to Nerus that if he had children, that they'd be the strongest people out there. But Nerus said that basically when he has children, they end up being weaker than him, actually. So, and plus Nerus had red eyes and white fur. Could he have a similar thing that Elisa have? I think he must have, since why else would it go straight back to Nerus and Sax just like that, all of a sudden? I think Nerus is connected to this about Elisa and her family. I think there's some connection to Nerus, or maybe not. But there's certainly be something about Nerus physically, or some kind of disease that has similarities to Elisa and her family. There could be a connection here between Elisa and Nerus. We'll have to see. So, Bernardo found this envelope or paper, and it had some blood and some magic in it. So, apparently, it's something the descendants have knowledge about. So, he gave it to Elisa, and Elisa's going to find the custody to see if he knows anything about it. The custody, the descendant. These special beings, kind of like lizard beings. So we haven't saw him We haven't seen him at all, just once, and that was early on in chapter 1. So we get to see him again next time. That scene of Barty and Santiago Remigio at the river. There's an opportunity for them to get to know each other more. All of them talk about their past, and Remigio being close, maybe not close, but he did have a lot of contact with the previous abbot, the one before William, and that's how he became a vampire, because the previous abbot before William was a vampire also. And Santiago saying that the reason why he went into the whole security thing, being a security guard, is because for the church, is because he felt he owed William a favor. Apparently William did something for him, so he felt that being a security guard for William, he was paying back to William by doing that. So, and we know that Barty is from a wealthy family. They're very influential, and we always saw that with Avalo, but this conversation they had, we learned that Barty's family is even more influential. His family members have their own businesses in different industries, and they refer to themselves as innovators. So he comes from a very rich, wealthy, and powerful family. I mean, he doesn't look like it because he chooses not to be that. He chooses to be an investigator because it gives him a thrill and doesn't care much about wealth. So certainly a different path Barty picked from his family. So, as opposed to his family anyway. So, thank you all very much for watching. Goodbye.